Welcome to the Spunky Spirit podcast. I'm your host, psychic medium Carrie Muggs. This is where we learn all things spirit, everything from spiritual gifts, awakenings, ghosts, aliens, and starseeds. Nothing is untouchable, but always fun and spunky. I am honored to be on this spiritual journey with you, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Hello, and welcome to this week's Spunky Spirit podcast episode. I am your host, Carrie Muggs, and this week we are going to talk about things that lower your frequency. So I always talk about things that raise your frequency, but this week we're going to talk about things that you can avoid that will lower your frequency. And if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, you notice that I have a different background. I'm still trying to figure things out. We moved to a different location over the weekend, and I love it, and it's great. Just trying to work out the quirks. We still have lighting over here from the windows. I need to get all the stuff done. So just be patient with me as we go forward into this new adventure. So the things that can lower your frequency. I talk a lot about things that raise your frequency, but I want to talk this week about things that can lower your frequency. That way you can avoid them or you can try and change them. Now, when I talk about this stuff, I don't want to talk about toxic positivity. I don't want you to be like always having to think about good thoughts or always, I want you to process your feelings. So if you have feelings, I want you to sit with them and I want you to process them and I want you to acknowledge them and validate them. This is not that. This is something different. This is, and besides, when you're processing your feelings and you're validating your feelings, that's always a good thing. That's not always a lower frequency because we got to feel those things, that we got to get through the growth of those things. So allow yourself that opportunity to feel the feels and feel the emotions, because that will, the end result will be good. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about that can lower your frequency is thoughts. And I want you to remember too that if this stuff can lower your frequency, it can also raise your frequency. Some of it can. So if you're constantly having negative thoughts or intrusive thoughts, and intrusive thoughts are a little different because you can't help them, but you can kind of try and control them or try. And that's hard to say too, because if you have anxiety, it's hard to control them. But if you try and find a way to go through them or process them, but what I'm talking about is negative thoughts all the time, like negative thoughts about yourself, negative thoughts about other people, judging yourself, judging other people, always thinking that things won't work out, like always thinking the worst. In fact, and my husband's probably going to kill me, but when we first met, when he would drive, we would go on vacation and we would be driving we'd go on vacation and we'd be driving down the road. And I kind of got a little butthurt because he would never talk to me. And I'm like, why do we not talk on trips? Why can't you talk to me? And he's like, because I'm going through my head. I'm thinking of all the worst case scenarios so I can fix it if it happens. And that was so weird to me because I just had never thought that way. I always thought, what's the best thing that can happen? Or how can it turn out? Or how can, it's always going to have a good ending. I always think the best. And then if there's problems, when it happens, I always just think it's figure outable. Everything is figure outable. So it's kind of funny because he thinks about the worst things that could happen so he could fix it. Now, either way, I don't think is bad. But if you're always thinking about what could go wrong or the negative all the time, then that can lower your frequency and that can put those thoughts out there. So really watch your thoughts and your thoughts about yourself, your thoughts about your body, your thoughts about who you are, your authenticity, and thoughts about other people. These things can, if they're negative and they're demeaning and they're belittling, they can lower your frequency. They can keep you in a lower vibration. Every thought you have emits a frequency to the universe, emits something out there. And I'm a big believer that you get what you put out there. So if you're putting these negative thoughts out there, you're going to get them back. So try and rewind. If you catch yourself thinking negative thoughts that this isn't possible, I can't do this, I look crappy today, I don't like this person, just try and rewind those thoughts and try and think of different things that you can put out there instead. Like, I'm grateful that even if I maybe don't love the way I look today, maybe I'm grateful for this shirt. Like, I don't know, but just kind of figure out a way to rethink it or rewind it. And honestly, you really shouldn't be thinking those thoughts about yourself anyways. And I am one to talk because I know
especially with my weight. Sometimes back in the day, I'd always think, oh, I look too big in this, or I look too fat in this, and it was constantly on my mind. And when I finally just kind of let it go and try not to think about it anymore, it wasn't an issue anymore. So, and I don't want to say that losing weight's that easy, but that's just how it was for me. So really be careful about your thoughts about yourself, thoughts about other people. Try not to think negatively about it. That's not toxic positivity. Positivity is when you don't feel the feels, and when you don't go through your emotions, and you just pretend everything's happy, hunky dory all the time, 24/7. That is toxic positivity, because you got to feel those emotions. But negative thoughts about yourself and other people, those things you can change. You can rewind them in your brain. And honestly, too, if you're thinking, you can think, I'm in the process of losing weight. So your mind won't play tricks on you, because if you say, oh, I'm so skinny and beautiful, and it's not really about being skinny, it's about being strong and healthy. But if you lie to your mind, then that's not great either. So just if you're in the process of doing things, say, I'm in the process. So negative thoughts about you, other people, that things won't go right, everything can go wrong, that people shouldn't do this, especially judgment. Judgment is really hard. So just remember that every thought emits an energy. And if it's not a thought behind an emotion, and you can't process that emotion, then try and rethink it. Try and reprocess or rethink that thought. Just try and look at what your thoughts are each day. So, or each minute. I'm laughing because I'm in a new building, and right next to it is like a street, and so you can hear the cars go back and forth. So I need to figure something out. But okay, the next one. You've always heard that you are like the five people you hang around. So this is a big one. Everybody admits an energy. Everybody admits energy out, their thoughts, their habits, all of their stuff. You know that you've been places, and when someone walks into the room, they emit an amazing energy, a feel good energy. And some people, they walk into a room and everybody is like trying to get away from them, because the energy that they have is kind of not great. It's a negative energy. They're not fun to be around. They're always complaining. That's kind of what the negative thoughts are, complaining or judgment. And so the people you hang around, or the people that you are around, can lower your vibe. If you're around not so great people, they can distract you. They can lower your vibe. That energy can, especially empathic people. A lot of times when I was first getting into my gifts, I had to realize that sometimes my feelings that I were feeling, or sometimes the fear or the anxiety, wasn't mine. It was other people's, because we all have auras, and sometimes when those people can get too close to us, we can share that energy. And so really be careful about the people that you hang around, or the people that you're around. We've all heard of the energy vampires and all of that stuff. And sometimes you can't control that, because you have to work with some of these people, right? So if you're in that kind of situation, just surround yourself with white light. Maybe take a little tourmaline stone with you, tourmaline stone with you to work. That kind of helps the vibe, or takes in the vibe, and it kind of blocks the negative vibes from you. But really be careful. And I don't want you to be judgmental. Like, you can love everybody, but you can love people from a distance. So if you are around people that are toxic or that lower your frequency, this is a big one, because they can drain you so fast. So really and remember too, that you're the same way. You can influence other people. Your energy can be, so what your energy is around how you feel, or what your energy is, can influence other people too. So really be careful about that. You're not responsible for other people, and you are very, very welcome to feel sad and blue sometimes. But just remember that you can affect other people's energy too. So crowds, people that you're around, just really be careful. I still believe, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you become like the people you hang around. So be one of those people. Lots of influencers or people who go-getters say that if you are the top person if you are the most successful person in the room, then you need to get new friends, because you always want to be learning and always want to be growing. But just know this is why holidays are hard sometimes too, because you don't have a choice to be around those people and they're kind of negative and toxic and you have to take that on. So if you have to be around those people, shield yourself, do those shielding, the protection stuff, but just really try and pick and choose the people that you hang around to be good influences and good and have high vibrations. Now, the next one is obviously music. Now, this can lower your frequency, it can higher your frequency. It depends on what kind of music you listen to. If you listen to songs that are sad or that are about breakups or about scary stuff or satanic stuff, then that's the stuff you're going to pick up. That's the vibe you're going to get. Music is so strong. It can raise your frequency so much. You could be in like the worst mood and put in a song and it can raise your frequency. And sometimes it can lower your frequency. I do know that I had an instance once where there was some paranormal stuff going on and it was really some scary stuff going on in a house. And it was worse when they had like really bad heavy metal going on, like satanic stuff. So it can totally, music is a vibe. It has its own vibe and it can influence so many people. That's why singers or musicians have such a hold on people, because their music can really, really affect people and hopefully it affects them in a good way. So just really be careful about the music you listen to, the lyrics that you listen to, and how you feel when that music's on. Spirit uses music all the time to connect. And I tell people, if you hear the same song more than 3 times a day, then go look at the lyrics, because Spirit's trying to tell you something. And sometimes I'll wake up with the song in my head and I'll know that Spirit's trying to tell me something through this song. I don't think, if I can't figure it out, I don't waste my time thinking too much about it, because I know it'll come to me later or in a different way. But really be picky about the music that you listen to, because it can up your vibe and make you super happy and excited, but it can also really lower your vibe too. Now, the same thing with the things you look at. So pornography is one. And movies, scary movies, I know some people love to watch scary movies because they love the fear, but you have to remember that your mind takes that on and it absorbs it. And sometimes your mind doesn't know, when you visualize things, it doesn't know reality from fake. So just really be careful about the things that you visualize or watch. I cannot watch a scary movie for the life of me. I can't. In fact, the other day I was watching, Instagram. I was scrolling on Instagram and they had a movie clip, and it was of a lady in the war, in the German war, and one of the Nazi soldiers came up to her and said she had 2 children. I don't even want to tell you the story because I don't want you to think about it either. And they tried to make her pick one of her children. I had to switch it because I couldn't even fathom that. And I had the worst feeling for the rest of the day. And I had to get it out of my mind. I had to put music on. So things like that will affect me so strongly that I can't stop thinking about it. And so I have to be really careful about the things that I watch. And because we can go to a movie and I will still think about that movie for months. My husband, it drives him crazy because I'll be like, well, what about this? And what about this? I'll still think about it. It gets me and my daughters, even with books that they read, they can continue to think about them forever and ever. So just be really, really careful about the things to visualize and the things that you put in your mind, because that has the power to raise or lower your frequency too. And then your atmosphere. The reason why I have a hard time with this one is because I don't want people to think that I judge, because I don't. Because my house is not always clean. My stuff is not always clean all the time. I try and keep it pretty cleansed, but I also have to live in it, right? You also have to live in it. But lots and lots of clutter, or lots and lots of dirty, cluttery, mostly clutter, not dirty, cluttery stuff can hold an energy that lowers your frequency. And I do know that paranormal investigations, if there's a really cluttery home, then it can cause some paranormal activity because of the clutter. It just holds that energy. That space will hold that energy, and it doesn't have the clarity, that it does not clear. And I know that during an investigation I did hear of paranormal investigator had to go in and clean the house, like clean the whole house because it was so cluttery. And I just don't want you, when it gets too cluttered, it just holds that energy. So if your desk is cluttery, your house is cluttery, things are cluttery, it will hold that energy. So just know that open spaces, things like that, that can help raise your frequency too. And it can help you feel better. I mean, I honestly, days that I had lower frequencies, if I just went through and cleaned my house, I would feel so much better. So just be careful about your surroundings and the atmosphere that you're in. And you can walk into places sometimes and you can feel the lower frequency or the lower energy. So just be careful about places that you're at. You can do that like in certain homes you walk into, certain stores you walk into. Your atmosphere is huge, and the spacing and the clearing and the clutter all around you is huge for your frequency vibration. So kind of watch that. I just know that really cluttery homes can carry a lot of energy. And also too, when you redo your homes or you redo things in your homes or redecorate or reconstruct or move things around, then that can move a lot of energy around too. So you can feel more movement in your home if you do that too. So just kind of watch that. Now, the things that you say, so we have thoughts, but also things that you speak. Those things you can't take back. So things like lies and gossip and the way you talk about people or the way you talk about yourself. Thoughts are one thing, but speaking it truth, speaking it or writing it can also cause a lower frequency. So really be careful. Gossip is the strongest, fastest way to lower your frequency because we just don't, it's not really, we don't know everybody's story, right? We don't know why people do the things that they do, and it's not really our business. And so when you gossip with others, it's really hard because it does lower your frequency. And then when we gossip, it actually makes us feel more superior to that person. And no one is more superior or inferior than you, ever. So just kind of watch the words that you speak. And the words that you speak can build castles around children or crumble them down. So speaking, the words you speak, be very careful and sometimes everybody has their moments, right? We all aren't perfect. I don't want to say we're all perfect. But just be really careful about some of the things that you speak into the world or that you speak to yourself or that you speak to others, and especially your children. So and I've had 4 and I was a single mom. Well, I have 7. We have 7 altogether, but I had 4 as a single mom. So I know sometimes speaking to the children can be a little bit hectic, and that's okay. So those are the 6 things. But here's the thing. If you find yourself doing some of these things and you're kind of having a hard time getting out of it or not thinking about it anymore or not changing your thoughts or changing the music, things like that, then try gratitude, because gratitude can raise your frequency so fast. The thing that you can do the best to raise your frequency is be authentic, be you. But the next best thing is for you to feel love is to feel gratitude. So if you're like having thoughts about your body that are negative, I want you to think of one thing that your body has done for you. So my body may be a little bit heavy, but it brought 4 beautiful children to this world. And so try and change that. Like think of the good things my legs are strong. I'm a runner, so my legs are very strong. So try and just think of the gratitude that you have for things. If those thoughts come to your mind or you speak those things, start to speak of gratitude, even if it's just really small things. It doesn't have to be elaborate or big. It can just be really small, because once you start small, then it just adds on and adds on and adds on. When you raise your frequency, it's easier to connect to spirit. That's why we talk about this all the time, because I know a lot of you out there want to connect to spirit. And the easiest, fastest way is to raise your frequency. So when you're in these lower frequencies, it's harder to connect. It's harder to connect to your authentic self. It's harder to connect to your higher self. And it's harder to connect to spirit and your ancestors, because their frequency is a little higher and ours is a little lower. And so they lower theirs and we raise ours. So we kind of connect. But if ours is clear down here, it's a little bit harder to raise our frequency. So all these things I want you to just be mindful of. Be mindful of them so you know when you're doing them that you can change them. So you can change them, or you can rewind, or or put on some music, some good music, or you can think good thoughts, or hang around different people. This is when you just know that it's time when you need to raise your frequency, because when you raise your frequency, you feel better. You just feel better, and when you feel better, you live in the now, which means you can connect to spirit. So kind of watch those things that lower your frequency that fast. Those things will lower your frequency, and you get to do you. So if some of these things that you're like, oh, I can't give up that, then don't. That's what you want to do. It doesn't mean you can't ever connect to spirit, because you can. I've had people in really, 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 really lots of grief, in the depths of grief, and still be able to connect to spirit. And grief can lower our frequency a little bit, and I don't want to put that out there in a bad way. It's just that we need to feel those feelings. And that's why I'm saying you need to feel those feelings. So if you're in grief, you let yourself feel those feelings, because you've got to get past, you've got it, and you're never going to get past grief. Grief is a thing that's going to follow you around the rest of your life, but it will change, and you can still raise your frequency while you're in grief. But grief is not something you can't just say stop being in grief to higher your frequency, because that's not possible. To higher your frequency when you're in grief is you've got to process your way through grief. You've got to work your way through it. So if you kind of find yourself in grief right now, give yourself some grace and give yourself some time, and know that it's going to be a while, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean you can't connect, because your loved one is working very hard, very, very hard to connect to you and be with you. Just give yourself some time, and don't be so hard on yourself on this one. And that's the one thing I want to say too. Don't be so hard on yourself. If you find yourself doing some of these things, don't think you're a bad person, because I guarantee you everybody out there has done one of these things on this list, or more, or all of them at least once. And so really just give yourself some grace and know that you're doing the best you can, and that's all you can do. I'm just saying these are some of the things that you can be aware of. So when you're actually doing them, and you actually find yourself having some thoughts, or listening to kind of sketchy music, or watching certain things that lower your frequency. I'm not going to say shouldn't, because that's not, but just lower. If you feel like they don't make you feel good, then maybe you should kind of like note that. Any thoughts or movies or music or things that you're speaking or people that you're around, if you leave them not feeling better, then maybe you should rethink about entertaining those thoughts and those movies and those people. Okay. So I hope that's good for you. If you want any more stuff on raising your frequency, I do have a course online called The Awakening. It goes through awakening your senses. It goes through all of the first things about awakening your senses, which is the clairs. It talks about the clairs. It talks about the chakras. It talks about signs and symbols and how to watch them, how to raise your frequency. I think it even has a meditation about your frequency. So if you want to explore more in that way, if you're a beginner, that's where I would start. But watch, because I will be having more online circles, spirit circles, and I will be having online classes and courses that will help with all this stuff this year. So it'll be fun, and let's start this new adventure. I love you guys, and I will see you next week. And remember, you are the magic.